At this time, I would like to welcome our presenter for the evening. We have Marion Jones Brooks, the Supervisor of Compliance with Prince William County Schools. Welcome, Miss Jones Brooks.
Thank you so much. I will share my presentation and then begin going over tonight's review. All right, as Ms. Duff shared, my name is Marion Jones Brooks. And before we go into the slides, I just want to share a personal connection. I am a Prince William County graduate and most recently served as an assistant principal at Woodbridge High School, where I also graduated from prior to transitioning into this role. So I'm very happy to be here tonight and very happy to continue serving the division in this capacity. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have toward the end of this presentation. Our discussion topics will include a review of the definitions of discrimination and harassment. You will receive an overview of the types of discrimination and harassment. You will understand the reporting requirements and also understanding what happens after making a report. You'll also understand how parents and guardians can help Prince William County Schools prevent discrimination and harassment, along with supportive measures and additional resources and contacts. We often start our presentations by making the connection to our strategic plan. Our office in particular aligns with positive climate and culture and ensuring our promise to provide a welcoming, supportive, and safe environment for teaching and learning, and that this environment will facilitate the academic journey for all students. This will include providing learning environments which foster inclusivity, connectedness, and encourages social and emotional wellness for all. Also ensuring that students feel supported and have a strong sense of belonging, as well as ensuring the facilities are welcoming, safe, and sustainable. Some of the reflective questions around positive climate and culture include, does each student experience a safe school with transparent, consistently enforced standards of behavior aligned with the code of behavior? And how is the classroom and school climate ensuring a sense of belonging, and not only that, but that it's also restored following a conflict? These are some of the grounding questions around the work that we do. Our first topics will be the definitions of discrimination and harassment. Misconduct towards others can come in many forms. One is bullying, which is aggressive and unwanted behavior intended to harm, intimidate, or humiliate, and involves a power imbalance repeated over time or causes severe emotional trauma. Discrimination occurs when one or more individuals are treated differently because of their race, color, religion, national origin, which includes shared ancestry and ethnic characteristics, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, including lactation, age, marital status, veteran status, disability, genetic information, or any other protected class. Harassment is a persistent pattern of unwelcome conduct that specifically targets one or more individuals based on protected class, which includes, again, race, color, religion, national origin, to include shared ancestry and ethnic characteristics, age, sex, marital status, veteran status, disability, genetic information, or any other protected class. Our office in particular responds to the allegations of discrimination and harassment. We have a separate team that responds to bullying, but when the bullying and the motivation behind the bullying is on the basis of your student being a member of one of these protected classes, that is where we step in to document, support, and be responsive to the needs of the students and the school. There are several types of behaviors that can run alongside discrimination and harassment. The first is demeaning and intimidating behaviors. This involves actions that demean, intimidate, or harm an individual or group. These behaviors create anxiety or fear for safety, resulting in an intimidating, hostile, and/or offensive environment. Such conduct can substantially or unreasonably interfere with the student's education. There are also various expressions, which can manifest in different ways, including physical actions, verbal communication, nonverbal cues, electronic messages, or written content. Lastly, targeting based on belief. This is important because it covers if your student is targeted as an individual, even if they do not actually possess any characteristic that serves as the basis for the harassment. The key factor is that the harassment is based on the belief that the student possesses such characteristics, thus they are experiencing discrimination and harassing treatment. Now we'll go over the reporting requirements. So Title VI is a federal law of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin, to include shared ancestry and ethnic characteristics in programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance. This would include Prince William County Schools. The existence of a hostile environment based on color, race, or national origin that is created, encouraged, accepted, tolerated, or left uncorrected by a school division constitutes discrimination in violation of Title VI. And the regulation associated with that is 738-3, resolution of allegations against students of discrimination or harassment. Next, we have Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, which prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school or any other education program that receives funding from the federal government. Essentially, Title IX ensures that no person in the United States can be excluded from participation, denied benefits, or subjected to discrimination on the basis of sex under any education program or activity that receives federal financial assistance. It plays a crucial role in promoting equal opportunities and fairness across educational institutions. And the Prince William County Schools Regulation is 738-1, resolution of allegations against students of sexual misconduct. Ultimately, PWCS must respond to all allegations of discrimination and harassment. In the process of reporting allegations of discrimination or harassment to this department, there are a few scenarios where the allegations could occur. It could be a student complainant and student respondent, a student complainant and employee respondent, or the employee could be the complainant and the student could be the respondent. The complainant is the individual or group of individuals that formally raises the issue or issues and makes the complaint. The respondent is the individual or group of individuals against whom a complaint is brought. Who and when to report discrimination and harassment. All members of the school community bear the responsibility to promptly report any suspected misconduct related to discrimination or harassment to school officials. We encourage all students, employees, parents, and community stakeholders to immediately report such incidents using the following guidelines. Students, parents, and community stakeholders. If a student, parent, or community stakeholder becomes aware of any misconduct, they should promptly report it to the student's principal, assistant principal, or the DEIC department. The alleged misconduct should be reported as soon as possible to ensure PWCS can promptly and efficiently resolve the issue. For Prince William County Schools employees, any PWCS employee who receives a report alleging such misconduct or observes it happening to or by a student must report it immediately. In no event should this reporting be delayed beyond 24 hours. The employee should report the incident to the principal, assistant principal, or if the employee is not school-based, to their supervisor. Employees experiencing such misconduct are encouraged to report it to their supervisor or our department as soon as possible. So we look to support not only the students, but also the staff in relation to discrimination and harassment. There are several ways to report. In order to report to DEIC, And within 24 hours, you can visit the electronic reporting form, which I will share in some upcoming slides, which is available via the Prince William County Schools website, or paper attachments to the corresponding regulation, or you can email the DEIC department at deic@pwcs.edu or Title IX Equity at pwcs.edu, or by calling the DEIC department. And our contact information will be included later on toward the end of the presentation. But the important part about this is knowing how to report and knowing that you have multiple methods to do so. Accessing the reporting form. If you have a moment and you're able to, I encourage you to locate this website, because this is our public web page where you can access the Prince William County Schools reporting form. If you look on the right-hand side, there is a link. If you select that, report discrimination or harassment, it will take you directly to the form. That form will allow you to answer a series of questions related to the misconduct, whether it is discrimination and harassment, or even if it is a sex-based allegation. You will be able to not only answer questions, but there's also a text box where you can type in the details of the incident as you've learned it from your child, have observed it in any capacity, so that we are able to review it. There are 2 electronic reporting forms that are accessible to you once you select that link. Highlighted here is the Title IX allegation reporting form. Under report type, there's a drop-down menu for you to make your choice. If the behavior is related to sexual misconduct, or if the behavior is related to discrimination, there will be 2 separate forms. This Title IX one will be the one you would select if you are reporting some concerns around inappropriate touching, for example, so that you can account for the details as you've learned it or witnessed it. The second form, as you can see highlighted here, is Title VI, and it says non-sex based. So if your student has experienced some conduct that is both severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, to the extent where they're potentially experiencing racial slurs, or there are some behaviors being directed toward them on the basis of their membership in a protected class, you will be able to fill out this form to account for those details and your students' experiences. Once a report is submitted, the DEIC department will respond within 24 hours, excluding holidays and weekends. If an allegation meets the legal threshold, the DEIC department will assign an investigator to conduct an investigation. The initial review happens when the student's administrator submits a report to our school. We have a compliance specialist that reviews the report, and we make sure that we are informed of who the student complainant is, the student respondent, along with any relevant witnesses. That is part of identifying the parties. If it does meet that threshold, being that the behavior that is shared is severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, we move forward with conducting the investigative interviews, gathering, reviewing, and analyzing the supporting evidence and documentation, composing an investigative report, and determining responsibility. It is a shared partnership in this process, and if your student is ever a part of this process being interviewed, you do have the right to be present. And so we ensure that that is communicated to you upon receiving the notice of investigation. If our office does not investigate and it is determined that the allegation does not meet the legal threshold in alignment with the regulation, then the DEIC department returns it to the school to be addressed under the Code of Behavior. The Code of Behavior is our student code of conduct. So although we may determine that the allegation does not rise to the level of an investigation, that does not mean that the alleged behavior, if determined inappropriate, will not be addressed through the disciplinary process with the utilization of the Code of Behavior. The next key component is understanding supportive measures. Supportive measures are non-disciplinary, non-punitive, individualized services offered as appropriate as reasonably available and without fee or charge to the complainant or respondent before or after the filing of a formal complaint or where no formal complaint has been filed. Such measures are designed to restore or preserve equal access to PWCS educational programs or activities without unreasonably burdening the other party, including measures designed to protect the safety of all parties or the PWCS educational environment or to deter further discrimination, harassment, or retaliation. Supportive measures shall remain confidential to the extent that maintaining confidentiality does not impair the ability of PWCS to provide the supportive measures. This slide breaks down supportive measures to understand the various circumstances and why they're so important. As previously mentioned, they are determined on an individual basis and preferably in collaboration with the student complainant, respondent, as well as the parent guardian. This is important because you should know what supportive measures are in place at the school, and you should be part of that conversation in determining what they will be so that you can ensure your student is being supported at school and you can reinforce and have those conversations at home about the supports in place at school. They're also designed to protect the safety of the parties, restore or preserve equal access to the educational programs without unreasonably burdening the involved parties. As mentioned, they may not be disciplinary or punitive in nature, and they should be implemented as soon as possible after the allegations are made. They should also be provided to both the complainant and respondent as appropriate, with the opportunity to seek additional modifications if the circumstances change. This is also very important because we are working with students and we have to give them the opportunity to learn and improve. And although the complainant is bringing forth the complaint and the respondent is allegedly the individual that's been involved in the misconduct, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given an opportunity to also receive support and also learn from how their words or their behaviors may have impacted someone else. So we want to ensure that both students, no matter their role allegedly in the situation or interaction, get the necessary supports individualized to their needs. They cannot be disclosed to other individuals other than to whom they apply, unless necessary to provide the supportive measures or, again, as mentioned, restore and preserve that access to the educational environment. When necessary, they should also consult with the student's IEP or 504 team in the implementation of supportive measures. If a student is receiving specialized services or if they qualify to receive a 504 plan, they're often assigned a case manager who may have some additional input on how this student can be supported or accommodations within that plan that they are currently working on to ensure that that student can have a successful school day. They can continue, be modified, or terminated at the conclusion of the grievance procedures, and they must be implemented in collaboration with the Title IX coordinator, myself, the compliance supervisor, and in consultation with the appropriate associate superintendent. Here is a chart of some of the examples of PWCS supportive measures. Depending on the circumstance of the situation, supportive measures may include, but are not limited to. So this list does not cover necessarily every possibility of supportive measures, but these are the most frequent and most common ones that we see used in response to some of the situations that our students may face. One is check-ins with the school counselor, which could be established weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Increased supervision and monitoring of certain areas such as the locker room, auditorium, cafeteria, playground, parking lot, field trips, or other school-related activities. Mutual restriction on contact applied to one or more parties. Reasonable academic or course-related adjustments or a change in classwork. Maybe there was a situation and your student stepped outside of class to see a counselor. At that point, the teacher should work with them to extend the deadline or offer an alternative assignment. Flexible hall pass and or use of e-hall pass. The example here is maybe a restriction on the e-hall pass or an early or delayed transition to avoid crowds. seat change in class or on the bus to and from school, assignment to a separate lunchroom, parking lot, or playground, hallway or building escort, consultation with the IEP or 504 team, the safety plan, a referral to an outside agency in collaboration with the school social worker to discuss counseling services or access to community agencies and counseling services outside of PWCS, transportation change, modifying class schedules. In some cases, it could potentially lead to an administrative transfer, where that's also consulted with the associate superintendent, or a change in extracurricular activities. Your role in supportive measures. It's important to positively engage with your student by checking in often about their experiences at school, communicating with the school. For example, you can request a conference with your student's administrator and also consider who else might attend: the school counselor, your student's trusted adult, or, as I mentioned, if they have a 504 or an IEP, their case manager. That conversation can include not only going over your student's experiences and the supportive measures, but what the plan will look like, and then how often you will revisit it to determine if there's some additional modifications or changes that should be made. Actively listening to your student and withholding judgment, understanding where the information discussed is documented, which we have the hub, which you may be familiar with, but that is our student information system for which we are able to document our supportive measures, as well as check-ins, for example, with the school counselor. There's a space where they can make notes about how the check-in went and when the next check-in will occur so that they can continue to build on their discussion. And requesting changes or modifications if the supportive measures in place are no longer being effective. Again, it may work for 2 weeks, and then maybe we need to revisit as a team and discuss what might be the next step or an adjustment that can be made to continue ensuring your student has access to a positive school climate. How can parents and guardians help? Talking is essential. Talking to your children about discrimination and harassment and discussing expectations for student behavior. Encouragement. Encouraging your students to report discrimination and harassment if they experience or witness it. And reporting misconduct if you witness or learn of it. Our department specializes in supporting educational environments that value all students and families, communicating with students and families regarding a student's right to a harassment and discrimination-free learning environment, promotes discrimination and harassment prevention programs, is a resource to parents and PWCS administrators regarding allegations of discrimination and/or harassment involving students, and manages sexual harassment complaints against students to ensure each is resolved in a timely and unbiased manner. The next few slides will cover some resources and contacts. Some of our primary resources, first is our PWCS Vision 2025 Strategic Plan, the U.S. Department of Justice, which covers additional information at length on Title VI, as well as the U.S. Department of Education, which covers information at length on Title IX. We also have a compliance and support team dedicated to responding to the allegations of discrimination and harassment, which include myself, our Title IX coordinator, our compliance specialists, and administrative assistant, along with 4 compliance investigators that are assigned to review concerns and investigate the situation when it does rise to that level of a violation. We can now open the discussion for questions at this time.
Aló, hola.
Hello.
Hi, yes.
Yo tengo una pregunta. ¿Me escuchas?
Yes, we can hear you. What is your question?
Si una persona es acusado falsamente, ¿cuáles son cuáles serían las consecuencias para la persona que lo ha acusado?
She's asking what is the consequence for the person who's accused them?
What is the
Si,
consequence for the person who's accused?
Someone of harassment
Okay,
or discrimination.
okay. So the consequences can vary. It really is the determining factor. One is if the allegation rises to the level of a violation, and our team investigates. If we move forward with an investigation, we would look at the interviews and the information collected, and any evidence associated in order to determine whether or not the basis for that behavior was founded or unfounded. So whether or not it was indeed discrimination and harassing behavior, or if it was not at all. In that case, if it was founded to be discrimination and harassment, there's a collective conversation around what the consequence might be, but there's no like one size fits all. It's really going to depend on the outcome of the investigation and whether or not it's founded, and what the next step is regarding the consequence, how that is determined. If it is returned to the school to handle, the school gets an additional 10 days to investigate, and they can then assign a consequence under the code of behavior that they see appropriate. The school will have an opportunity to look at that student's history, and to determine if this is a pattern of behavior or if this is maybe the first time that they've done it, or also to be considerate if this is a student receiving special education services that might have a goal area where they're already working on this type of behavior. So the consequences could vary, but it's really going to depend on the facts that are gathered and what the next steps are to best support the student, both students involved, and the school environment.
Okay, we have a question in the chat that says, is there any further information you could provide on bullying?
So I got another chat asking to clarify that the previous parent was asking about false accusations.
Okay.
So again, if our office is to investigate, it's on the basis that as the incident was reported, it rose to that level of a potential violation. It was severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. If during that investigation it's determined that the allegation is unfounded, then that next step for that student would not necessarily be maybe like a harsh consequence, if that's what you're referring to, because we would have found that it was unfounded in this particular office. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't have violated the code of behavior in another way. It just wouldn't have been on the basis of discrimination and harassment. Now to the next question, can you repeat that for me, please? About bullying.
I'll go ahead and
right?
read this one because it goes along with that one, and then I'll go back to the other one. Is there a
Okay.
consequence if it's found that a complaint or report is not made in good faith?
So if a report is not made in good faith, we use that as an opportunity to consult with the student and the family. And the students and the families receive notification about whether the allegation is founded or unfounded. From there, it's encouraged to have the conversation about, what their experience was. Maybe there was a misinterpretation. Maybe it impacted them on a level where emotionally they were more harmed than maybe what they actually expressed. So our goal is to ultimately uncover the facts. And if part of the facts is founded that something was untruthful, that would be documented as well.
Okay, and the other question was, can you provide any any further information on bullying or any resources for bullying?
So our office in particular does not handle bullying. We have a separate office under the Student Management for Alternative Programs Department and Threat Assessment that receives bullying complaints. They have a form very similar to our form. However, when the motivation of the bullying is happening because of the membership in a protected class, we look to those supportive measures, which I discussed, as well as opportunities to have the student meet with their counselor and go through better ways to respond to certain situations. And certainly there are some additional resources posted on our Prince William County Schools website in relation to bullying that you can locate as well.
Do we have any further questions this evening? I think that's it.
All right. Appreciate everyone signing on tonight and being here.
Thank you for each of you for coming tonight. I'm going to place a survey link into the chat. If you could please complete our survey, we would appreciate any feedback you could give us on tonight's session or for future session. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.